All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alfredo Pedroza. I'm one of your county supervisors for the 4th District. I want to welcome you all to the Napa County Community Meeting. This is your team that's working for you. We have elected officials from the local level that will be introducing themselves. We have our state partners and federal partners here as well. And we also have our leaders in public safety who have been doing a great job. This is your meeting, so I want to say thank you for being here today. Thank you for wanting information. Thank you for wanting to be engaged. This meeting is also being shown online on Channel 28. It's being live streamed. It's being shown at the shelters. We wanted to be mindful of everyone's sensitivities with evacuations. Please silent your cell phones there, Chief. And we also have this with sign language. So we're trying to be as accommodating as possible. So again, our lives were severely impacted by the fires that happened here. And we understand the situation that we're all facing. Today, you're going to have information, the latest facts that we know, and you're also going to have an opportunity to ask your team any questions you have. We are in it together. We've done this before, unfortunately, whether it was a fire or the earthquake or flooding. And I'm so proud of this community. The devastation is real. And I know there's some questions that some of you may have, and we're not going to be able to give you the answer right away. But I don't want you to question whether we are working hard for you, and we are definitely trying to get you the answers to those questions as quickly as possible. Again, this is your meeting, and we want to give you the information you need, understanding that there's a long road to recovery. There are some short-term things that we're going to try to do where areas that weren't impacted as much by the fire, we're close to looking at, can we push roadblocks further out? Can we talk about repopulation in areas that are safe? But that one thing that we are deeply committed to, that is our priority, is your safety and making sure you're safe. And when that's done, we'll talk about returning to the new normal of Napa County. But this community comes together in ways that we can't even think about today. So with that, thank you again for being here. I'm going to turn it over to Supervisor Diane Dillon.
Good afternoon, folks. Thank you all for coming, and for those of you who are watching, we appreciate your attention. We're trying to communicate with you, hear from you. So what I'm going to address is many of you have asked about returning to your homes. For those of you who have been evacuated, we know that you are anxious, that you're scared, that you have more questions than answers at this point. Our primary priority at this time is your safety, and it's for that reason and that reason alone that if you have not been allowed to return to your home, that's the reason. And it's more specifically, there is fire danger. We have had flare-ups in areas that we thought were, gosh, this looks like it's probably going to be a safe area, but we better check before we let folks back in. Flare-up. If you had gone back in, we wouldn't have been able to we would have moved on to the next area and not been able to respond the way we would like to, and you would be there. Downed power lines. When we let folks back in, a term that's used by CAL FIRE is repopulate. There's a repopulation plan. The gas company signs off, or the propane, PG&E signs off, the sheriff signs off. We have to make sure that there aren't down power lines. And water, the only boil notice that we've had so far is in a mandated evacuation area. So that's why we just can't let folks return without making sure it's absolutely safe. So evacuation orders are for your safety, and we are working as quickly as we can to restore services and repopulate areas. The second thing I'd like to address is an advisory evacuation. An advisory evacuation, the whole purpose of it is to allow you the opportunity to be prepared to leave in a non-panic situation. So we're letting people know that this is an area that we may have to mandate an evacuation based on factors that we're seeing. And when I say we, it's not we, it's CAL FIRE that makes the determination. But we're the ones that send out the notice, and it's our sheriff who implements and enforces that order. So when we do an advisory, it shouldn't be a panic situation. It should be, we're giving you the opportunity to assess what you need to do if you don't have a plan, to make a plan. And then when we have to do the mandatory evacuation, you're ready. And a perfect example of this is what we had in Calistoga during the last 4 days. Calistogans, the fire started in Calistoga, the Tubbs fire, outside the city limits, but just outside, and went to Santa Rosa, Sonoma County, where, as we all know, there was just awful destruction. And then it flared up again in Calistoga on Tuesday, not in the city, but adjacent to it. So at midnight on, actually at 3 a.m. Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, a certain segment of Calistoga was ordered to evacuate. It was very interesting. They were ready. They had their bags packed. It was calm. It was orderly. There was not, we met with no resistance, and the rest of the city was put on advisory. Last night at 5 o'clock, they were ordered with an immediate mandatory evacuation. Again, they were ready. So that's the reason for those two different terms, advisory evacuation and mandatory evacuation, and that's the goal. All of the mandatory evacuations that have been issued in Napa County remain in place. We have representatives from all the responding agencies to share further information with you, and we're going to be hosting a Spanish language version of what we're doing here right now at 6 p.m. at St. John's Catholic Church in Napa. Thank you. Safety is our priority, and so I'm going to turn this over to our fire chief, Napa County Fire Chief Barry Bierman.
There we go. Good afternoon, folks. My name is Barry Bierman, and I am the Deputy Incident Commander with CAL FIRE Incident Management Team 3 that's overseeing some of these fires, including our fires right here, and also the County Fire Chief. The current situation on the fire is that it's not out, obviously, and we continue to struggle with a lot of challenges. With all these fires in the area, it has really stretched our resources thin. So we have to share the resources between the different fires that are going on. Right now around us we have multiple fires burning in Lake County, Sonoma County, Napa County, as well as this fire, the Atlas fire, is going into Solano County. Currently, we sit with a total this morning of a little over 77,000 acres for the fires that we're overseeing within the Sonoma Lake Napa unit, which includes the Atlas fire, the Nuns fire, and the Partrick fire. So these fires continue to move in different directions. Last night on the Partrick fire over on the Sonoma City side, we had more evacuations. We had more homes consumed by fire. We had firefighters seeking shelter as fire intensity picked up and came by them. So the challenge is still there. On the Atlas Peak fire, we have still have some tough areas that we're working on in out on the far south end as it's progressing towards Jameson Canyon to the south, and we're getting crews in there, making some good progress coming around through Solano County, Green Valley, and then when you get back up higher into the Woodin Valley, Berryessa Highlands, that area, that's where a lot of our resources are trying to work on today to steer it away from the community up there in Woodin Valley and Gordon Valley. The fire, it has not as many resources up on the far north end, which would be pushing it up towards the Turtle Rock area and up farther as it advances. It's a ways away, but trying to creep its way up towards the Pope Creek Bridge. But the residents there are trying to manage and put all this stuff around. We're trying to do still a lot of structure defense where appropriate with the perimeter control. The west side of the fire, well, the north side of the fire, we have a lot of work to do. It's hung up there above Sage Canyon, up in the hills, and that's some tough country to try to get into, but we have a lot of work to try to stop it from progressing to the north. Along the west side, some really good progress is being made, and probably that's where we're starting to pick up some of our containment along that west side above the Silverado Trail, between the Sage Canyon area and all the way down to Trancas Street. Our other fire is the Nuns Fire, which is impacting the Dry Creek area, Mount Veeder, Dry Creek, Lacoya, and the fire is picking up in there. It's very steep. There are heavy fuels, and the crews are in there battling very hard right now. We have limited resources. We have requested an additional strike teams of engines, dozers, and crews, and put a lot of air resources today on that area, trying to ensure we can keep it from crossing Dry Creek Road. That's our priority, because below that we start to push into the community that houses our Veterans Home, the California Veterans Home down in Yountville. Those are all high priorities, and so we're making every effort we can to try to contain it up there. That side of the valley is very thick fuels, no fire history in there, and it's definitely causing a lot of challenges. Of course, the biggest challenge is our weather. So we were very thankful that the weather that was predicted to gust to 40+ miles an hour, 24 hours ago, did not happen. We had some wind, but it was not that significant. But the breezes gave us some challenges, and the lower humidities give us those challenges, and that's why we were in what was called the red flag warning, and I'm sure many of you have heard of that. We go out of that tonight, and unfortunately, we're going to be going back into it this weekend. And the National Weather Service is predicting significant northern winds to develop through our area Saturday and Sunday. And those numbers we have to still refine as we're a few days out, but they are talking. It may not be as strong as the wind event that caused this incident, but they are predicting it to be now just under that. So that causes us concern, and we are doing all we can to put resources in the right location, extinguish what we can. We hope, like this last weather system, it wasn't nearly what they thought it was going to be. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed and hope that that does not develop, but it's something we continue to prepare for. These strong winds, while common in this time of year for strong north winds, these are excessive. And on the backside of these winds, they're calling for low humidities into next week, including single-digit humidities, which allows fire to start easy. And these are things that are concerning for us. So we have a lot of work to do. There are a lot of resources from all over the state, now the country and farther, that are making their way here, and we're getting the help that we need through a lot of help from multiple agencies, from our local politicians. Everyone is beating the drum that we need help here for these fires, and while we give it often, we are now receiving it and is much appreciated. And that's all I have to say.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Karen Reluccio, the County Health Officer, and I'm also serving as the Medical Health Branch Director in the Emergency Operations Center. So with the smoke in the air, this can have some significant health impacts. And the best way to avoid illness from smoke inhalation is to stay inside and to keep the doors and windows closed. If you have underlying respiratory illness such as asthma or chronic lung disease and you're having worsening symptoms, you should see your healthcare provider. Masks do not necessarily provide the best protection. There's only specific types of masks that might provide some if it fits right, and that's an N95 respirator. And there's not enough of them right now in order to protect everyone. So the best course of action is to stay inside. The other thing that I want to address is if you've lost power and you've lost it for more than 4 hours during the shortage and the refrigerator wasn't closed right, you should throw away your food in the refrigerator because there are germs that could grow inside the food if it's in the wrong temperature, and you could get sick. Also, if your house or apartment has fire damage and you find non-perishable food items, don't eat it because it impacts the seal of the can or the packaging, and it could be contaminated with chemicals. So do not eat that either. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Chris Childs, and I'm the commander of the Napa CHP area. and it's been my honor to serve this community for many years now. And before I get started with my remarks, it's quite different than this morning's press conference, standing in front of a room with reporters and cameras, as opposed to standing or sitting here looking out at the faces of the Napa community. And I just want to pay a compliment to this community, watching it pull together, watching it support each other, and watching you support the efforts of your work crews, your fire crews, and your law enforcement personnel has been truly inspiring. Our office has been inundated with food and water, and the support of this community is quite unique. I've worked in many parts of the state, and I just want to tip my hat to the Napa community and compliment you for being such great people. So as we said at this morning's press conference, your CHP resources have come from far and wide, and they continue to staff road closures, they continue to provide escorts, they continue to pluck people off of mountaintops from helicopters, and we have brought all of the CHP's resources to bear to keep people safe and to make this the best environment possible for you. I know this is a tough time. I had an opportunity today to tour the devastation just a little bit. I took a drive up near Lake Berryessa, watched as, I'm not sure what structure, but a large plume of black smoke rose high into the sky, and my heart went out to whoever lost another structure. But I was very heartened as I stood there at the Turtle Rock parking lot and watched CAL FIRE's little airplanes come through and drop water, and I thought that was cute. And then I watched two giant C-130 aircraft come by and dump giant loads of pink retardant all over the fire areas, and it gave me a feeling of hope that this was going to end. So I know I'm paying a lot of compliments, but Barry and his crew are really doing a great job out there. So in terms of what I'm looking for from the community, ways you can help, mostly try to stay away from the devastated areas. We still have people trying to get in. Primarily, it's people who want to go back home, and again, our hearts go out to them, but we can't have them in there. It's still quite unsafe. I was dodging and weaving power poles and trees down, and there's still things smoldering. So please continue to be patient with your public safety personnel that are keeping you out. There's a very good reason, because if we have the public in there, it will not only cause an unsafe situation, but it will delay all of the essential services to get those roadways in neighborhoods open sooner. Let's see. And I've said it before, and I'm just going to say it one more time. If you're asked to evacuate, please take your medications. Please take your dogs and cats, if you can, with you, and make some preparations now. If you're given a warning, pack a bag, put your belongings in there, put your medications in there, because it does tie up critical resources that could be allocated elsewhere when we're helping people get back into their homes. And then finally, we have our social media up and running, and we're posting things hourly, both to Facebook and Twitter, and that you can just search for CHP Napa, and it'll come up on both sites, and you'll get the latest information that the CHP has to provide. So again, thank you for being patient with us, and thank you for listening to me. So, thank you.
John Robertson, Napa County Sheriff. I would like to thank you for attending today. I also want to thank you for your patience while we work through this epic event here in Napa County, and as we assist our surrounding counties deal with their issues also. I also want to thank the 26 agencies and the hundreds of police officers and fire personnel that have attended, have answered our call for help. And it's heartwarming to see the response and the cooperation that we can get through the California State Mutual Aid System. So you're in the best hands possible, and I want to reassure you that we're going to get through this. We're going to work through it. Because we have so many resources coming from outside the area, we have started, this is our second day of escorting people into some controlled areas for critical needs to check on family, pets, and retrieve medication and necessary items that they need, and then they're escorted in and escorted out. We have started those escorts at the corner of Silverado Trail and Trancas, right in front of Nob Hill, and we thank you for your patience while you wait there, while we line up the units that are going to take you into those closed areas, and appreciate your cooperation once again. So thank you very much.
And I'm going to talk a little bit about the shelters, but I'll just say one thing. it's so rewarding to see you all clap for Chief Bierman, Sheriff John Robertson, and Chief Childs here, because they have done a phenomenal job getting people out of their homes that were in risk. But they're also going to be working so hard to get you back home. So they deserve a hell of a round of applause. So we do have a few. And we're going to have some time for Q&A, so we're just going to talk briefly about the evacuation centers, and then we're going to get to some Q&A. We have 658 people housed at the following shelters: Crosswalk Community Church, which is at 2591st Street, Napa Valley College Gym, 2227 Napa Vallejo Highway, and we also have the Solano Community College Library in Suisun Valley, Fairfield, and the last shelter is the American Canyon High School Shelter, and that's at 3000 Newell Road. Up next is Supervisor Brad Wagenknecht.
This will be quick, but we all were living in the dark for a while here when the fires come through and they knocked out a lot of the PG&E infrastructure in the area, and we live in the dark. When you go home, it was dark in Browns Valley. I lived in the dark when you go home. But you were living in the dark because you couldn't get your news outlets, and that was problematic because we all needed to know what was going on, and it was too smoky outside to go outside, so you needed to have that. So we started off with over 30,000 households without power. We're down to 6,200, and I don't know exactly where those 6,200 are at this point, but we're down to 6,200. That means we've got about 25,000 that have been restored. We have 800 PG&E workers, and you've seen the blue trucks all over the place at this point. 800 PG&E workers working to try to get those back. It was such a relief to go home on Wednesday night and to have the lights go on and hear the little buzz of the refrigerator. That's my report.
Hi, everybody. My name's Ryan Gregory, Supervisor, District 2. Information is king right now, and the last few days it was one of our biggest challenges, not being able to text each other, call our loved ones. We seem to be through that, but maybe not quite yet. So many of you just want to stay in touch with what's happening. I saw many of you at both the city's meetings yesterday, and you're here too. And I know that when you come here, you're sharing that information with your friends and family, so thank you. You're a big part of that. And probably more importantly, people want to know, heck, if I have to be evacuated, how will I find out? So for those of you that don't have technology problems or just can't get through for some reason, we have set up an information center at our library here in Napa, downtown Napa. And I understand that info centers will be established in American Canyon and Yountville libraries today. That's a place you can go and check in and just see what's happening in one place. As far as technology go, and let me say one more thing. There is another community meeting tonight like this for Spanish speakers at St. John's Church, which is at 960 Camus Street, downtown Napa. But for those of you with technology, I would tell you the best place to go right now and get current information is Napa County's Facebook page. We are posting as well on our website, but on our Facebook page is, I think, where you'll find the most current information all the time. And I am pleased to say that before this event, we had 13,500 followers, and we're up to 19,000. So spread the word that you should be on that, and let's make it 19,250. All right? The other is Nixle. You've probably heard this way too much, but it's so easy and so important. To get on Nixle, you just simply text your zip code, 94558, down on this side of the valley to the number 888-777. You can also go on Nixle.com and sign up that way. It's so easy. Before this event, we had 20,000 Nixle subscribers. And today, throw out a guess. Who thinks where we are today? 134,000 subscribers. All right? It's important. It's so easy. Tell all your friends to get on there, because the minute you need to be evacuated, you're going to get buzzed on your phone. And of course, you've seen us on TV and other news outlets. We're working hard, coordinating with our media partners everywhere. And then last, there is a phone number to call, 253-4501 for public information, so try that.
That's way too fast for the interpreter to say.
I'm sorry. Ready?
Yes.
253-4501. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Assemblymember Cecilia Aguiar-Curry. I represent this district as well as many others that are on fire. It's been a tough couple of days, but I want to assure you that the state of California is here to work with you, and it's a collaborative effort that we're all making. We have cities and counties, Solano, San Mateo, San Diego, Los Angeles, Santa Clara, Alameda, Yolo. They're all here that have all been working on the front line, and I want to thank all those first responders. We have additional states that have been working with us, Nevada, Washington, Oregon, Pennsylvania. They're coming from all over to make sure that we can keep you safe. It's been a difficult time, and we're working, the hardest part has been communication, because once these little things went away, we all thought we'd died because we couldn't make any communication. I also want to thank the National Guard. They have been phenomenal. We have many people that we've had to move from point one to point B. But my biggest concern I thought I'd share is that Sonoma Developmental Center had to be evacuated. They're very fragile people. We moved them to 2 different spots, but we got them settled at Dixon, at the Dixon Fairgrounds. So if you're looking for any family members, they are safe. They are being well taken care of, and I want to just thank the state for making sure that that transition was very smooth. So to all of you here today, we're not going away. We got many years to get you back on your feet, and I'll be there for you. Thank you.
I'm Mike Thompson, the congressman from this area. And first I want to tell you that I'm very sorry for any situation that you're in. If you've lost your home, if you're just displaced for a temporary time, I know how tough this is, and my heart goes out to all of you. But please be assured that you've got a team working for you. This county, Napa County, I represented a lot of counties in Northern California and been through a lot of natural disasters, and I can tell you without any question, the Napa County team is absolutely second to none. They're doing a wonderful job on all of our behalf. Cecilia talked about the mutual aid from within the state and some of our neighboring states and states as far east as Pennsylvania and the southern states. There's also a mutual aid on the federal level as well. And the state government is working with everyone from the Forest Service to the Department of Defense, trying to figure out, assess what they can bring to this situation, and they're drawing on those resources. And there's also international mutual aid. We have either here already, some of them here already or on their way, firefighting teams from both Canada and Australia. So this is pulling all the plugs. This is a priority fire. This is a priority fire area, and everybody's doing all that they can. Yesterday, they CAL FIRE had requested 900 additional firefighters and 134 additional engines to be on this fire. So all of the resources available are here at this priority site. Funding is also an issue, and the federal government immediately approved the federal firefighter assistance grants, which are welcomed in a case like this. The request from the governor was fulfilled right away, and that was to provide for public assistance grants. That means that all the funds that are expended to fight this fire will be backfilled by the federal government. Most of the funds, a lot of the funds, will be backfilled by the federal government. And from an individual perspective, that application has been filed too. It takes some time before FEMA will approve the individual grant request. And it's not, nobody's dragging their feet. It just takes time to quantify the damage and figure out how they're going to respond. So be patient. We'll work through this, and I guarantee you FEMA will be there in a big way. Funding is very critical. Today, the House of Representatives passed an supplemental emergency appropriations bill. It was about a $37 billion supplemental to deal with both hurricanes and all of the emergency issues that we have to deal with. There was $19 billion included specifically for hurricane and fire relief. That was a number that was plussed up by $1 billion at the last minute because of our fire situation. And I think that's a real good indicator that the federal government recognizes the significance of this tragedy, and they're going to be there to help. So as Cecilia said, we're all going to be here till the bitter end. We're with you. We've got your back. We'll continue to work on making sure not only is the fire out and lives are safe, but that we're made whole. It's a great honor for me to introduce our next speaker, Mark Pazin, who is the Chief at Homeland Security and OES. OES is one of the leads on this tragedy. He's a great guy doing great work. Mark?
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. As the Congressman mentioned, my name is Mark Pazin. I just see so many resilient people out over there. I was awoken at Sunday morning at about 2:30, and it's been nonstop just like you folks. So on behalf of Governor Brown, Director Mark Ghilarducci, our thoughts and prayers are with you. And not only that, we also bring assistance. We bring, as the good sheriff had mentioned, and I want to also thank Sheriff for inviting me here today. I've been on both sides of the fence. In my previous life, I was sheriff of Merced County. I did a full 32 years there, plus 3 terms as the elected sheriff, and that's how I had the good fortune of meeting John. So I understand what you folks are going through. We had the floods and some fires in and around the Merced-Mariposa area. I'm going to throw some acronyms at you. UCG, FEMA, LEMA. We have soft closures, hard closures, CNG. And I'm going to bring this all together for you because we are here to help you. When the calls go out, regardless if it's Napa, Sonoma, Nevada County, we are here. Congressman mentioned FEMA. Embedded with us in Rancho Cordova at our State Operations Center is Bob Fenton. He is the Region 9 Administrator for FEMA. He is at that table with us day and night to ensure that you folks have the financial assistance and that we have the proper tools to ensure that we combat this fire and take it down to the ground. This Unified Command Group, the UCG, consists of Director Ghilarducci. The governor met with us yesterday. Director of Fire Suppression, Director Ken Pimlott, Commissioner Warren Stanley. They are always there in the morning at the 10:30 briefing as we gather information to ensure how we are best using our resources, whether they be human resources, or how do we get those products out to you to at least sustain you until you get back to your homes. LEMA, Law Enforcement Mutual Aid. The sheriff had mentioned about all the strange cars and maybe some of the strange patches that you saw. Ladies and gentlemen of Napa County, the system works. I've been on this job for about 3 years since the governor appointed me. I've been up and down the state, and it's thanks to what we call the Regional Mutual Aid Coordinator. That would be Sheriff Greg Ahern out of Alameda. This sheriff here has all the resources, and I am a phone call away. And believe me, now that the phones are working again, I do get the phone calls. So thank you, Sheriff, for that. I would ask that, ladies and gentlemen, if there's a barrier up, a soft closure, please heed that. There is equipment working, whether it's the Highway Patrol, Napa County SO, CHP. We had a terrible accident because somebody did not heed the soft road closures with the barrier there, and two motorcyclists, for whatever reason, we're still trying to figure it out, ran into a water tender truck that was trying to suppress a fire in one of the areas in and around Sonoma County. Please, it just breaks my heart that people just feel compelled to go past those barriers. With that, we have brought in the California National Guard. They are now currently at Napa Airport. They are being deployed in a methodical, meticulous way to ensure that the assembly member had mentioned about Dixon, that we're going to protect those persons there. So when you see the National Guard, they are there at our request at the federal and state level to help supplement and augment the law enforcement officers here in Napa County. With that, I tell you, I'm just happy to be here, and on behalf of Governor Brown and Director Ghilarducci, our thoughts are with you.
At this time, my name is Aramis, and at this time, I would like to thank all of our partners, because we truly are partners in this endeavor of the 2017 Napa Fire Complex. I would like to thank you for being here and participating, and we will open this up for questions. So you do have
Yes, Supervisor Ramos, we have a couple of runners in the room who've got Post-it notes, so if you have questions, please feel free. We'll be passing those around and picking them back up. And we're also taking questions live from the shelters right now, so I've got a couple for you already.
Excellent. So go ahead and turn in those cards, and I would please just ask, out of respect for everyone's questions, please don't shout them out. We'll get to these questions. We certainly, that's why we're here. We're here to answer these questions. We know that information is important to you, so we'll get started with the first one.
So the first question I have is from Lionel Baez from Calistoga. Will you inform us as to when we will be able to return to our community?
Sheriff Robertson.
We are currently actively working with the California Highway Patrol and CAL FIRE and Chief Bierman to assess the situation, the roads. We're trying to let PG&E do their work with the gas lines, get power back up. We also have water concerns, things like that. So as soon as we can safely put you back into those areas, that's what we're going to do.
The next question I have is from Esmeralda in Napa, and she's asking, how controlled is the fire up by Steel Canyon Road?
Chief Bierman.
So the fire up in that area still continues to progress. We're making some good efforts there. We have a lot of dozers in there. We're developing fire plans if necessary to do some firing operations to control it. It is not contained by any means, but an aggressive assault is being made on that part of the fire for sure, and we are hopeful that we will be able to get that tied in and keep it out of the from progressing any further to the east as well as to the Berryessa Highlands.
Okay. The third question I have is from Guillermo, and he asks, what recommendations will you provide us on the measures we need to take to return safely back home?
I'm going to go with Sheriff Robertson. Dr. Lucio departed at this time.
As far as safety, obviously, when you return, there is the possibility that we do miss something. If you return home and find that is gas leaking or there's problems with your electricity or utilities, we ask that you immediately contact the provider and also leave the area, and we'll take care of it. But obviously, you're going to be going back into an area which may have been devastated. by fire. And we know that that's an emotional time. And I just ask that you take the time to take care of yourself and your family as you progress back into your community.
Okay, and the next question I have is from Chantel, and this is Calistoga oriented. Do you expect fires to get deeper and bigger in Calistoga? What containment, if any, can you share with us?
So that fire, while the majority of it, the Tubbs fire as it is called, is managed by CAL FIRE Incident Management Team 1. But parts of it that are burning into Calistoga, and if it were to progress any further than that to the south, our team is going to go ahead and assume responsibility for that. We are both working very closely together, both teams, and sharing resources, but that's a challenging area. That fire is burning up on the side of Mount St. Helena. There was a small area that went across Highway 29 today that we worked on picking that up, but I do expect that parts of all fires will grow until we can contain them. I hope it's not an exponential growth. I hope that as we continue to make progress on other parts of the fire, we divert resources around to those areas that are still growing. But yes, the Calistoga area still has the potential for that fire to grow and to come in areas we don't want it to be in.
And I have a handful of questions here. So the first one is, I live a short distance up Monticello Road from Trancas, perhaps a third of a mile. The map shows non-impacted west side Monticello close to Trancas. Why can I not return?
So it's a priority for us as soon as we get to these incidents to extinguish the fire, save lives and property, but also to get people back into the people that have been displaced. I mean, that sits right up at the top. So when we put those evacuations into place, they're not necessarily right where the fire stopped, because we didn't know that. It's also an area where the fire still has potential to go to. We are evaluating currently the areas that we can shrink down and make some of these road closures a little bit less impacted to the areas that have not been affected by the fire. However, to do that, it's a process. We need to make sure that the threat goes away. In other words, we don't want to let you back into an area and think it's okay, especially if it's within an evacuation order area or a mandatory evacuation area, only to find the fire later, turn around and come back at you and try to re-evacuate people. So that process is going on right now as I speak. They are working on that plan to try to get some of these road closures moved, opened up some areas, and those will be the first areas that we will let people back into when we do, is the areas that have not been impacted by fire. The next phase will be a little bit more challenging, securing all of those areas from all of the hazards that exist.
So this is a card from Spanish-speaking client that I'll be translating. Is the advisory for the evacuation between the east of Silverado and Trancas and Sosco still in alert?
Yes.
Since this happened due to high winds, what are we going to do to shore up this fragile infrastructure? Bury lines?
You know, one thing I'll say is right now we are on two fronts on this fire. We continue to be in life safety mode, and now we're making some progress in terms of containment. This is only the beginning. As a community, we'll have many issues, many lessons learned that we have to address. We simply don't have answers right now. We don't know. The fire remains under investigation, and what I ask is, you know, let's unify right now. Let's figure out how we're going to support our fire crews, our law enforcement right now. Let's get ourselves to that assessment stage that will allow people to start going back in to their homes. Thereafter comes repopulation, and then we start addressing those things that need to be addressed here for our community to keep us safe in the future.
This question is about homes. How do we find out if our homes have burned? Is there a list of destroyed homes?
So we have a damage inspection team that goes around and is assessing all properties right now to confirm properties that have been unaffected by the fire and the ones that were not so fortunate. So there is a team on that, working on that, and they are gathering that information right now.
What are the chances of the fires enclosing us in? I live on Imola across from the state hospital, so I am concerned about a way out.
So that is within the advisory area that we have, and those are areas that we've listed. Again, we put an advisory in place to have people prepared in the event they need to evacuate because an order or a mandatory evacuation order is issued. So again, being down in the valley is a little bit easier to get out to safe locations than being up in these canyons and drainages that surround our valley. So I would say that if you're down in the areas of Imola, and the areas that we may have advisories, for the most part, those are down in the flat areas, and we will, if something changes, make sure we send prompt notification that you need to get out. So again, in the advisory area, you need to have a plan in the event it changes to get out, so please be prepared, and we will do all we can to give ample notification, which is why we have advisories.
This is a kind of a time frame fire question, and it's a three-parter. How come there was zero containment after several days? Why wasn't the National Guard sent in sooner? And why weren't more firefighters called in from other states sooner?
So I heard the first question, you're talking about the National Guard?
The first question was, how come there was zero containment after several days?
Oh, zero containment. Truly, after the first several days, we were doing all we could to save lives. In fact, when I first took command of that fire early on, I knew it was going to go big. And my leader's intent that I issued to all the personnel that were on that fire is life safety is our #1 priority, rescuing as many people as possible to get them out. And then after that, it's to defend as many structures and homes as we could do after the lives were rescued and saved. That first couple days, and even today, we are still having homes that continue to burn, etc. So after a couple days, there was little containment work going on to contain the fire in areas when we were still trying to save homes, we were still trying to make sure people got out. It is a process. For us, when we start to show containment, it just doesn't mean that the fire's out on the edge. When we call a fire contained, it means that section of fire has little to no threat of ever coming out of that area again. We want to see the fire mopped up, which means we go in 300 feet deep, all the way around it. We take care of every smoking stump, everything that could still be burning, anything that could fall into where the fire was. And so that's what containment is. It's not just that the fire stopped on that edge, it's that we validated the risk of spreading has stopped. That is now occurring in multiple areas on all of our fires. And as the resources come in, you will see those numbers start to go up, and it means that we have more and more containment and hopefully less and less risk to our structures and to the citizens that are out there.
This is a question from one of our shelter residents currently. Napa, can you rest assured that there are no immigration or ICE data being collected from evacuees or that they will show up at shelters? Can you assure people that there won't be any immigration consequences to those who look for shelter?
I can tell you, one of the things that this board has made loud and clear, and that we have even put it out on our county website, is that we're here to protect everybody during this evacuation, during this fire incident. Our shelters do not ask for immigration status. It is irrelevant to your admittance coming into our shelters, so you can rest assured that you are protected here in Napa County at our shelters. Congressman.
And I'll just add that I was on the phone today with Homeland Security on this issue. It is common practice to put out a statement from the Secretary of Homeland Security. They did it during the hurricanes, stating that exactly. They are working on that. I'm told there'll be a statement by tomorrow.
And what I will do, Christy, just a moment, for anyone that we do have this broadcasted YouTube and at our evacuation centers. I'll go ahead and I'll say it again in Spanish, and I'll say, tengan por seguro que aquí la mesa directiva de los supervisores del condado de Napa no les importa su estatus inmigratorio. Queremos que todos se vengan a los centros de evacuación que estén seguros que a nosotros lo más importante es que usted esté afuera de peligro y aquí no es bienvenido inmigración y aquí vamos a asegurar que ustedes están fuera de peligro en nuestros centros y nosotros aquí los supervisores Brad Wagon Connect, I can't say that in Spanish, Supervisor Diane, Dillon, Supervisor Gregory, and Supervisor Alfredo Pedroza, todos hemos dicho en una voz unida.
May I add one other item, if I may?
Yes.
Is that this issue is also addressed. There will be a paperwork coming out for state parks to have temporary housing. There will be no request for identification.
Vale, ¿puede decirles de lo que dijo el congresista Thompson sobre del federal?
Sí, el congresista Mike Thompson dijo que en estos estados de desastre, el gobierno federal, específicamente el Departamento de Homeland Security, da una notificación y y lo que hacen es tienen una directiva que dice que en estos tiempos inmigración no va a venir a estos lugares de desastre y ahorita ese documento está en proceso, nos dice el congresista. Él habló con el Departamento de Homeland Security ahora esta mañana.
Christy, I don't mean to interrupt, but I've been asked a question. What is the map behind me? And that map behind us is the fire perimeters in a geographical area, and there's some marks in there to kind of see where it's located, but those are some of the fires that are around us, so those are the fires that are around us within Napa County. And everywhere you see red, that's where the fire is. The important thing is, don't take that as just because it's all red that it means everything is burned. It means that is within the perimeter of where the current fire's edge. There'll be islands that didn't get burned, and there's a lot of houses that didn't get burned in that area. So just because you see your property within that does not mean that it's necessarily gone. So.
Okay, the next question is a bit of an emergency preparedness one. In advisory evacuation zones, what can people do to protect their homes before leaving? What shouldn't they do?
So for fire safety, I mean, first of all, we want everyone to have defensible space, right? So if you live in the areas, specifically in the state responsibility lands, anywhere within California, you need to protect your property. You need to have defensible space. You need to ensure that flammable materials are away from your home. And you want to do all you can to protect anything from igniting around your property. There's a lot of plants you can have out there, etc. The immediate thing when you leave is make sure that we don't want you to turn off your electricity if you have a well, because when we get there, we may want to use some water, but we want to make sure that your home is free of vegetation as possible. If you have I'm trying to think, what are some other critical things? If you have planning time, if you're in an advisory area and you haven't done your defensible space, now's definitely the time to do it if you're in that area. But just making sure that your home is secure, that windows are not open, would allow maybe embers to come in through open windows, close all your windows, draw your blinds to make sure radiant heat doesn't come through if fire gets in the area. But most importantly, just leave. When we're under an order, we need to get people out.
The next question is there a number you can call to locate someone?
Sheriff Robertson, so I'll start off by saying what we're asking evacuees to do, even if you're not evacuated and you have poor communication, go to one of our communication centers, the library, and register at www.safeandwell.org. That is a a platform that the county does not manage, but the county will help facilitate the location of individuals through that. So if your family members are looking for you, or you're looking for family members or friends, go on to www.safeandwell.org. All of our evacuation centers are helping to ensure that everyone is registered with safeandwell.org. But I do want to say again, the county is not releasing information. This information is solely to account for you. We care about you, not your information. And so safeandwell.org. In terms of missing persons, I'll let Sheriff Robertson talk about that.
So if you're still not in contact, and we had a rough period there for the first 3 days without cell phone coverage, without the ability for internet and things like that. That tool that we use to contact our friends and family was useless at that point. And so a lot of people left and found residence in other counties, in some cases other states. People went on vacation, and people generally left the area. So if you have still not been able to locate someone, then I would suggest that you make a missing persons report. So far, we've received 83 reports of missing people, and 25 of those have been accounted for, and they're safe. So we are still investigating 58 missing persons. And I'm sure that number will drop down as people get in contact and as the cell phone service is increased and people are texting and reaching out on social media, which is definitely huge. So if you're still concerned, then please don't hesitate to give us a call. We'll definitely look into it, and we'll definitely go out and investigate these things.
And what I can say also is that our district attorney, who is here, Allison Haley, is actually the one manning up this charge to make sure that everyone's calls are answered and the reports are taken appropriately, and that our team is getting those questions answered for people and helping you find your friends and your loved ones. So thank you, District Attorney Allison Haley.
I know we have about 15 more minutes for questions because many of you are going to be going to that 6 p.m. meeting, so we'll get through as many of these as possible. Is there a community bulletin board online, on a recorded line, and at city/county buildings listing all the local businesses offering free services? As a new small business owner, it is hard to get the word out. Have you used KVON? Maybe you want to talk about the information centers?
So what I'll say is that I do know that there's a lot of information coming into the evacuation centers, and evacuation centers do have bulletin boards posted. So that's one way of being able to get information out. Use KVYN, KVON. I can tell you that almost every person at this table has been on the radio, and we're disseminating information. Certainly, from the county's perspective, I can say that our mission is to get life safety information to you. Our mission is to get assessment information to confirm credible intelligence to you that comes from these people with badges over here. And so we're not going to be doing that on the county's website, but certainly use KVYN, KVON. Utilize Facebook. It's amazing how many people are utilizing those platforms for communications, and utilize the good old post-it bulletin boards that exist at our evacuation centers.
The next question is a specific location safety question. Are the avenues by Silverado Trail safe now?
The avenues are east of Silverado Trail, so they are under an advisory evacuation. So we think that the fire threat is minimal, but there's still a fire threat. And with the predicted weather changes that are coming up again, we're going to leave those advisories in place in those areas and do everything we can to keep the fire away from there.
Chief, just so that you know, Chief, the avenues are actually mandatory.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. That's right. My mistake. I was thinking
sleep.
Silverado Trail, but out in the avenues itself. Yeah, so we're making good progress through there. Again, that's that whole west side of the fire that we were talking about. And so we are continuing to make progress in there. I think the threat is minimal right now. That was issued early on, and we are going to make sure, though, that everything is out and the fire is contained in those areas or enough of a risk has been mitigated. I can tell you that we will not be letting people back into those areas prior to seeing what the wind does in the next 48 hours for sure, but we are still addressing all those evacuation areas.
From a layperson's view, Sheriff Robertson and I toured that area. We went around from Hagen around over, what's that, 4th over 3rd. We checked out Barrow Lane right there, and we saw smoldering trees on Barrow Lane. So certainly it still does remain, as Chief said and confirmed, it's mandatory, and there's a reason for it. We want to make sure we keep you safe. Next question.
Home survived, have a generator. When can we hook up to have electricity power for well?
I think we heard that already. We need to go through the process, CAL FIRE, the sheriff. There's boxes that we need to check to make sure all the way up that it is safe. We need to have confidence in that process. We certainly do understand it's frustrating to not be able to go home. We're not at all discounting how much you probably want to go home, especially if you've seen pictures of your house and you know it's there and you feel competent in doing that. And while you may feel competent in going back, we up here need to feel confident in your safety.
The next 4 cards are all very similar in location. What is the current situation of fire on Dry Creek and Mount Veeder, kind of all in that area?
So the current situation is that we today we did have some increased fire activity in that area. The fire continues to grow through there. It's very steep, it's very dense, heavy vegetation. Again, without a lot of resources, those areas take a tremendous amount of resources to contain that fire. We're doing all we can as a priority to protect and defend the structures that are there, and then we're additionally getting more resources coming in there. Quite a bit of resources were ordered into that side of the valley today, and we made it a priority as well for aircraft. So we are working as diligently as we can to be safe in there. It's not a safe place in some areas when there's fire involved on some of those narrow roads that have dense fuel, not a good easy way out. So when we go into those areas, we're always trying to think about how not only did you get out or can you get out if people are still there, but our safety as well. So we're having to work very carefully in those areas to contain the fire there. But we are aggressively, as safely as we can, attacking the fire.
Our cell phones worked on 10/8. We signed up for Nixle and received no notice. What happened? Had to self-evacuate.
So I can say on behalf of the county, having sat in the EOC for nearly every single evacuation message that went out and sharing it myself, I'm not certain what may have happened in terms of your connectivity, but the messages have gone out. We have pushed them out. We have pushed them out in every way we know how. There's also the reverse 911 system in place. If you only have a cell phone, no landline, you need to register your cell phone for reverse 911 through Nixle. So that's another option that I encourage you to do that now. Go down to the library if you don't have connectivity and sign up your cell phone for a reverse 911 system. But the messages have been going out. I think one of the things that may be frustrating is you feel you're not getting enough messages. Sometimes we get criticized for sending too many, and we might be getting criticized now for not sending enough. If you're not getting a message, that's because there's not new information, and certainly if we need to confirm information, we do that as well. Next question.
Okay. So this is a question, it's coming out of Napa Valley College, and apparently there was an announcement made on Facebook. Why is the Napa Valley College announcing it is closing to evacuees?
It is not. Not certain where that information is coming from. I apologize for that. I will follow up with our Director of Care and Shelter, but certainly what we look at is capacity issues. So it's not necessarily a closure. It doesn't mean we're telling people to leave. It may just be a capacity issue, something we continue to monitor carefully with our Director of Care and Shelter in place there and through our resources that are available. And if we do need to shift over some evacuees over to other shelters because of space, we will do so, but our evacuation centers are open. So Napa Valley College, I do know that staff is to report on Monday and that on Tuesday, classes are supposed to resume. So that is the message from Napa Valley College. What I can say is we're in disaster mode. So I can't even promise you, I don't even know what I'm going to be doing in an hour. I can't promise you 12 hours. I can't promise you 24 hours. So, well, yes, Supervisor Wagenknecht said apparently I'm at the Spanish-speaking meeting in an hour. But what I can say is we are planning, the schools as well, Napa Valley Unified School District, we're planning for some sense of normalcy beginning next week. But as we go and as situations change, trust me, all these people, including the superintendent of schools from NVUSD, Patrick Sweeney, Dr. Ron Kraft of Napa Valley College, Dr. Barbara Nemko of NCOE, we will be in communications. And if we need to create other evacuation centers, we will. We will not be closing evacuation centers as long as we have evacuated areas.
This is it goes back to the map question, so you may be able to use that. Please, can you show us on the big map where the active fires are in the East Hills?
And I'm sorry, I heard the active fires, but what was the end of it?
In the Eastern Hills.
In the East
Eastern
Hills.
Eastern Hills?
Yep.
Okay.
No, I can do it.
Are we talking about the east side of the fire or the eastern hills that you're seeing from here?
So maybe, Chief, if we could just do on that Nuns Fire over there, that Dry Creek area, that, no, but if they're saying on the eastern side, is the question as to Atlas? Okay. But they're saying the eastern, I thought this was the eastern side.
Do you want to do all of them quickly?
Ah, that one.
You want me to show where all the active fire currently is? Yeah. Okay. Again, this map is a good map to show intensity. So as you can see, this starts talking about where active fire is. Your dark bright red is where the most significant fire activity occurs. Again, this area all up in here, let me get the right one. This area all up in here, starting to look a lot better, and you can see not the bright, hot spots. Obviously over here is how we start looking at Mount Veeder, Dry Creek Road, and all those areas where fire continues to drop down. These are very hot areas of fire. Up in here, the same area. This is up into that Sage Canyon area, trying to get up into the fires. It's trying to progress and make its way up into the Berryessa Highlands. We still have fire progressing. I'm glad to see a little bit of this darker stuff there because that's not the hot area. And coming across the Sage Canyon, we still have fire up in here. And this is some really tough terrain with some deep canyons and drainages there. The good news is that as you look down along, as things continue to come down along Silverado Trail, we don't see much there right now. And these are areas where I think we'll start to see some good containment occurring and hopefully be allowed probably priority areas for repopulation in the future, road closures and stuff. And those are all the areas that are being taken into consideration as we speak, as we develop a plan. So that's pretty much the hot areas now.
What I can say is that this map is available at www.countyofnapa.org. I can tell you that your EOC staff is working round the clock. So as soon as we get these maps from CAL FIRE, we're loading them up. We put them out in a PDF format. We put them out we started playing around with the GIS mapping format to get you a little more zoom capability, but these are available to you. And so we've got the legend here. check it periodically. Our average map update is about every 6 hours or so right now at a minimum. If things change, I can tell you, you've got a whole mapping crew sitting in your EOC, and that is what they're doing. And I can tell you that the 5 of us, we sit there and we're pushing, we're saying, get us a new map. We're going to do a time check right here. We're going to take a couple more questions. And what I can suggest is, I'm certain you understand that we want to get you information. We also need to make sure that we are getting our staff and our resources back into our EOCs and back into those lines of communication. So we're going to take your questions. Let's go ahead and take 2 more questions. We'll take your questions. We'll do our very best to post these on our Facebook page as questions from follow-up questions from our community meeting. I'm not going to make promises. I'm not doing that right now, but we will try our very best to answer the rest of the questions. But we do have people that need to go out, get more information out, and we need to get some badges back into the scenes.
So this one has to deal with farm workers.
Yes.
What measures are being to protect labor workers being made to work in the smoke conditions as they continue picking for harvest?
So certainly our agricultural commissioner, who I believe is still here, yes, wave your hand. Commissioner Greg Clark is here. Commissioner Clark is the liaison between industry right now and the EOC, working with operations and working with growers to make sure that, let's be real, this is busy season, right? And we've got to minimize damage for everyone. Economic damage is just as devastating as displaced damage. So we're working closely, and I can tell you that industry groups are very well engaged and seek to do the very same to protect them. So those resources are being put in there, and the sheriff is also working very closely with them.
Okay, and the last question is more about fire response. Some of out-of-town fire departments are unable to hook up or connect to Napa's equipment and/or hydrants. How will this issue be resolved?
There should be no reason why out-of-town units cannot hook up to our fire hydrants. We use the same standard fire hydrants throughout the state. The threads are the same, so there should be no reason at all that out-of-town firefighters can't hook to our hydrants. Now, when it comes to maybe out-of-state, that could be an issue, but we have portable water tenders everywhere to get our fire engines water, and then we would make those adjustments.
Supervisor Pedroza.
Thank you, Chair Ramos, and I do want to share some good news, and maybe we're ending on some good news, and I want to thank the chief from CAL FIRE for all the great work they're doing, and this is just effective now, live information, that some of the mandatory vaccination orders effective in Silverado Country Club, Monticello Park, and the avenues have been lifted, and that's great news. And I will tell you, that required a lot of work from all the men and women that you see up here, and so many people in the EOC and the command center that have made this happen, because they want to get you back in their home. And we don't want to underscore that there's still people in danger in other areas, and we have to be sensitive to that. But let me be more specific. The intersection of Atlas Peak and Westgate, let me rephrase that. Folks along Monticello Park in that general area will be allowed to repopulate, go back home. Areas in Silverado Country Club around the Springs and Canapali. Silverado Trail, everything between Hardman and Highway 121 will be open as well. And this will be provided on our county webpage. CAL FIRE has also made this press release. Thank you again to CAL FIRE for all your great work on this. Thank you, Chief.
We hope that in the coming days, as I said this morning, we will continue to have our press conferences at 9 a.m. We will continue to keep you informed. Please make sure you stay abreast of our information And keep cheering for your fire crews. Keep cheering for your law enforcement officers. They're doing the best for you. They're protecting you, and this is the type of good news that we want. And let's keep hoping that the weatherman is wrong if it's not in our favor. And be well, Napa.